Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Peter Terzop. I want to do this video for my education channel. I hadn't been called for a while because I've done so many videos, and someone said, "Well, would you consider doing a video on expectations? Like, what does a student look at?" And because a common comment is that, well, every professor has their way and they do things differently. And because I didn't do as well, it's because of them and because they have different, you know, things they look at. And while that is true in some ways, we've gotten into this standardization thing in the United States and in the world in general, where everything's standardized. Everyone's supposed to think the same, grade the same. Everything has to be perfect. We use rubrics, and that means everything's objective. But in reality, rubrics are they appear objective, but they're very subjective. Unless it says you have to do something 2 times and you do it and you get the points, that's more of a go no go system. We see that like when I was in combat arms in the military. You either do it or you don't, go or no go, right? And if you don't do it twice, it's a double no go, and then you have problems and retrain all that. But most rubrics aren't like that. They're very subjective. So the world appears standardized. We want to make everything the same. All professors do this. But all students have the freedom to be who they want, right? They can do whatever they want. All the uniqueness and innovation, but professors can't, right? They have to all the time, all the way. And if one professor allows you to do something, then all professors are supposed to allow you to do something. So that's why I think expectations are very important. I had a student the other day who was basically admitted to cheating. We'll just call it plagiarism. And I sat there, kind of looked at it like, well, I mean, you cheated, right? I mean, maybe you did it on purpose, maybe you didn't. But we have teachable moments, learning lessons. Sometimes you have to write students up and say, hey, look, you copied the whole thing. Maybe, there is a difference between cheating and plagiarism. Sometimes we just copy something, we don't know how to use it, or we're new at it. And that most professors tend to work with students and try to educate them and grow them and all that, teachable moments. But there's some students that just cheat. They copy the whole paper and they know that's wrong. At the end of the day, they've seen the APA classes or the readings, and they know if they copy something that's too easy, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. Or they go to a cheating website like Course Hero, and there's a bunch of them now. So, or they do the new thing called spinning, right? So that takes what you want, spins it, and makes it look all garbled. And you're like, well, it kind of reads okay, but it doesn't. So that's just cheating. So the expectations, there's certain expectations that I think are pretty universal, like original work, good grammar, good spelling, good APA, or some type of formatting system, Chicago, Turabian, something like that, and make sure you do things timely. There's this universal things, right? Now, I will say there are professors that get their expectations are different. Some are real big on time. If it's 1 minute late, it's a letter grade off or not graded, and that's fine. They're trying to teach you in their world precision and timing is very important. And while I'm not a big stickler on that, I can see where it can be a big issue because if you're trying to get work done and grade papers and students keep turning things in late, then one, your schedule's thrown off, and two, you're trying to get everyone caught up and move to the next section, but you still have to keep going back. That feedback's late, then they don't get to use it on the things going forward, then that causes a big loop, right? It causes a lot of trouble. So the thing about expectations are some teachers have very high expectations, some have just maybe middle of the road, and some have almost none. They're just grading things to make a paycheck, okay? But there are some professors that have high expectations. Now, what a student should want or at least expect from a teacher is having obviously the instructions to an assignment that should be clear, and professors should be open to the idea that not everything's going to be able to be put, and students should be open to this as well, into a video or into the instructions of a paper or say an assignment. You can't list everything. It would be a manual every time, and even then that would get confusing. So you have to kind of put in perspective that the instructions are when they're written, it's the best, and then this kind of generally speaks to what's going on. Now, in my case, I do video overviews almost in every unit or week, and that allows students to understand what's important to me. And I'll tell them, like, say they're doing an assessment, this is what it should look like, this is the length. I want to see citations, I want to see good grammar, I don't want to see conversation. I give a whole thing, like, this is what's going on. And when you get the feedback, you'll hear the same thing again if you did it. So I try to do expectations that way. Some professors like to post written expectations. Some have a hybrid maybe a video and written expectations, but I would really go out of your way to watch the things. When you go into a course and you just start doing the work without reading the syllabus, reading the things that professor posts, and noting their videos or their expectations, then you're gonna get in trouble real quick. Now again, if they have low expectations and you're just doing whatever and you're checking blocks, which I have a video on that, checklist students, that's fine. It'd probably work out for you. But if you meet a professor that really does care and actually does do their job, you probably will have trouble because they might be really big on time and you're not. And then all the other professors didn't care, but this one does. And there's a policy that says they can. So that's why you need to pay attention. If that's a stickler for time and that's going to cost you a letter grade, then you really need to move on that time and be that has to be a priority, right? So there's things that you have to really pay attention to. If the professor tells you, I want to see citations and this is what I want, then that's what they want, okay? And it doesn't really matter and say, well, no other professor did that. Well, it doesn't matter. That's what they want. And so they're trying to teach you something to add to your education, which they think is important. Whether you do it going forward, whether you let it influence you, that's your business, right? But at least they're saying this is what's important. That's the beauty of education. You have a lot of diversity of where professors are coming from and backgrounds and educations and disciplines and what they feel is important, priorities and beliefs and morals, and they kind of all roll up into the overall education that you have. If the professor is easy and you think that's a priority, then go look for easy professors, and you'll get an easy degree, and that will not help you as much as maybe actually earning a degree and getting the most out of it. So, you're paying good money. You might as well get as much as you can out of it and learn something and be pushed. It's not always fun, but it's just something that, we all really need to do. But we're obsessed with A's, maybe B's, but that's the obsession, right? Grade inflation. In reality, I would rather get a C knowing that I learned a great deal of information and really learned versus getting an A where I just kind of regurgitated or just typed whatever came to my mind, or I could just have my kid do it who's 13 years old. We have to make the most of our time and get the most out of our education. So it's just something kind of to think about. Having said that, the expectations are critically important for students to read the syllabus, watch the video reviews, read the things posted in class. And, the fallback, the ultimate fallback is just call the professor or email them and say, I'm not clear. Could you please help me with this? And if you don't get a response, you should expect a response. But if the person's on leave or maybe they're experiencing illness or something, maybe there's a glitch in the email or phone, follow up. You can't just say, well, I tried, I'm done, now I have an excuse to fail. Own your education, just like anything in life. Own it, right? And if you don't get responses, then go to the lead professor, go to the program director, go to the dean. You should expect those things. But at the same time, always try to resolve it at the lowest point, because sometimes this emails just don't come up. I had one recently where a student emailed me while I was on leave. Well, it said, I'm on leave, contact a covering professor. Well, if I come back and you say, well, I emailed you, and I go, well, that's weird, I don't remember that. Well, then that's on you, right? You have to sit there and let the professor have an opportunity to respond and to try to help you. So having said that, that's the big thing about expectations. A little bit longer video, but it's very important to take 5-10 minutes and really review the class and just not going right into it. Just because you've always had success is not an indicator you'll have success going forward. Really read and understand what that professor wants. If there's anything else, though, always feel free to drop me a line. Great topics, and best of luck.